Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day. What is it? Wednesday? Happy Wednesday, hump day, all that good stuff. Hope you're having a good one. Of course, we're going to take a look at Bitcoin and just kind of understand best practice, big picture. We did lose our trend line tentatively, and I want to talk about that as well as some other things that we need to kind of bring to our attention and just kind of think about in the big picture. So if you're new to the channel, not a financial advisor, thank you so much again for joining me here. Keep in mind, I love teaching people to trade. So I have a trading academy, community, and signal group. Link in the description below if you want to become a member. Got a lot of folks transferring over here from some other service platforms because it's affordable compared to the competition. So again, if you want to learn better practice, feel free to consider joining, as well as benefiting from the signals that I send, albeit they've been seldom and a lot less frequent than I'd like. But the main reason why is because we haven't had much confirmation recently. So again, a handful of different things to kind of think about. Either way, I do offer discounts for military and third world countries. Thank you so much for your service as well, and I appreciate you reaching out. I've got a lot of service members contacting me recently. Thank you for that. All right, so here's where we're at. On the daily, we can see the obvious here. We've lost this trend line. Now, again, when I say lost this trend line, the candlestick hasn't closed yet. Okay, we got to recognize that today being, just middle of the week, it's a traditional trading week, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is when this candlestick closes. Okay, so that being said, with that candlestick having not closed yet, we can't assume that it's going to continue to go lower, but we want to look at other factors too, right? So, but for now, it's looking fairly ominous, and it does look like we've lost this trend line, but we're not quite there yet. It could literally be a candle wick just like this before, where the price action comes down and bounces up and essentially closes as a doji candle somewhere in the 23,007 to 24,000 range, right? That's a possibility. So we can't rule that out just yet, but for now, it definitely looks like it wants to continue lower. Got some things working for us though. We've got the 50-day simple moving average correction. Sorry, that's a 50 on the RSI. That is looking very, very good here in this sense. Just in the main reason why is because I feel like we're overextended to the downside here, at least on the shorter time frames, and we should effectively see a bounce right around the range that we're at, because there's a combination of other factors, but this is a good thing to be able to see the price action still above 50 in the RSI. Okay, we break below that, might be a different story, but for the moment, I do like that we're there. So I'm not super concerned with us losing this trend line tentatively for the moment, because we do have some saving graces there. We'll look at that in a moment here as far as other alternate, sorry, speaking is hard today, other alternate confirmations that we're looking for, but generally speaking, the daily is still mostly good, even though it doesn't look great with this large red candle here for the moment. But what we want to take a look at is a small handful of factors. So we're going to take a look at TD sequential here and see we are at an 8 on the 4-hour. And I'm willing to speculate we're at a 9 or a 10 or 9 plus on the hourly. So again, we'll look at that here in a moment, but generally speaking, when we're at an 8 on the 4-hour, it's rare for the price action to go past an 8. Okay, I mean, you'll see 8s and 9s, but for the most part, it doesn't continue in that same direction for long. Okay, in other words, shorting right now might be a bad opportunity. Obviously, long, you want to be very careful with that, but generally speaking, I'm still feeling more long than short at this point based on the overextension of the downside, and I'm willing to guess Bollinger Bands are telling us something similar. That being said, though, that's where we're at on TD sequential on the 4-hour. Definitely looking okay in that regard, because reversal would make sense. Okay. Now we do have to acknowledge that we are making lower lows and obviously lower highs. Okay. So this wick up didn't really work out so well. So there's no doubt that we are in a descending type of trend. But on the same accord, we're overextended on this descending trend. So worst case scenario, we see more price action like this in the next 24 hours, where it will break down slowly and then lose itself again once it's consolidated. So again, we're not there yet, but at this point, hypothetically, we should see a bounce. We're also getting closer to 30 on the RSI, but generally speaking, on the 4-hour, not super concerned with that. But this could be an area of contention here, because in most cases, when you bounce, when you hit 30 on the RSI on the 4-hour, there's almost always a bounce. So again, we're looking at that being a possibility in the relative near future, kind of reaffirming that 23,000 should be a strong support level. Another thing we want to take a look at here as well, and I use this more so on the back end. I don't really worry about it on my videos, but I may as well show you here. We do have the GAN fan here, and this is something that's really interesting to me because it's showing that the price action is following this little trend here, of course, this lower lead, as well as the fact that we have this ascending here as well. So what that basically just tells us is if you were to kind of zoom in and kind of see where these are at, for the most part, 23,000, that Fibonacci retracement level, should be a decent bouncing point. So if the price action comes lower, I'm speculating 23,000 will be a good area of opportunity there in that sense, as far as a likely return upwards. Okay, and a handful of reasons why I think that too is if you look at the daily, you can see the volume. Let's take a look at the volume for the most recent time frame here. We can see that there's an accumulation, of course, at 24,000. Second largest is right around 23,000. Okay, so very, very good price action here. I like what I see, but generally speaking, we're in good shape here for the overall sense of things. All right, so even though, yes, the market opened poorly and it wasn't a great start, that is something we need to acknowledge. Another thing we need to look at too is that traditional markets also gapped down. Gap down from traditional markets, and an increase, so to speak, on the US dollar index will inevitably leave Bitcoin trending lower. Okay, so we just got to recognize that too. There's a lot of factors that kind of are pushing the price action down, and that's just something that's important to recognize. Let's go and round things off here with the 1 hour and kind of see where we're at, and see if I was right in this sense here. TD sequential, we're at a 9. There we go. We're actually in the 10th hour, so to speak, to the downside. So likely we're going to go ahead and see a reversal here, because again, when you hit a 9 on TD sequential, it doesn't mean it's going to stop, but for the most part, it's common for the price action to turn around later. So I'd be willing to speculate that we might see an increase to try to close the candlestick at least at a doji candle on the daily, and to get the price action back where it started. Okay, so again, that's potential reality. Again, is it likely? Hard to say, but generally speaking, we're adding all this stuff together and coming to a conclusion that we're overextended to the downside. The likelihood of a further push down with all these support levels at 23,000 is pretty low. So again, I would say 23,000 is the lowest point. A long position might be viable. Do a 2 entries at 23,400, a second entry at 23,000, and likely see the price action increase from there. Again, candlesticks hasn't closed yet on the daily, so we just got to recognize that we're not quite there yet. This is the obvious here. It's just something to note. Again, this is conflicting everything I've just talked about. The hourly here, of course, for the Ichimoku cloud is telling us that we are absolutely in a position where a short is viable. In other words, not necessarily you want to open a short, but you want to keep your short open until this tells us otherwise. All right, so opening a long right now would essentially be risky. All right, so keep that in mind. I'm considering opening a long personally, but on the same accord, I use low position sizing and typically have larger, my stop losses are typically further out to ensure that we don't get stopped out. All right, so again, that's just something to kind of think about. Big picture here for Bitcoin. All right, so once again, the cloud is telling us that if you have a short, leave it open. Hasn't confirmed that it's finished its momentum to the downside, but on the same accord, everything else is telling us that we're overextended to the downside. Let's take one quick look at Bollinger Bands on the 15, and we can see that we did go outside that standard deviation now, and that is pushing the price action sideways. So definitely a good place in which I would feel comfortable or more comfortable taking a long versus a short position. Again, this is just my thoughts, my ideas. You can come to your own conclusion. There is a potential. Keep this in mind too. If we take a look at this, we are only at a 2 to the downside here. So there is absolutely potential for the price action to continue for another 7 more days at least to the downside. That is a possibility. Now, does it come to a 9 on TD sequential on the daily? Typically not, but we have had that happen in the past, but there was some pretty significant stuff in the market there, some fundamentals that threw things out of whack. So pending we don't have any crazy nonsensical news, I think we should experience potentially a bounce at 23,000 and or at 23.4. We'll see what happens next. I hope that works out, because keep in mind, we're still not in dire straits because, again, we're still making higher lows. So if the price action comes up from here, just say we close right here and continue higher, we'd still be making higher lows, right? And that's the important thing. Once we start losing those higher lows, that's another conversation. We lose 23,000, it might be anticipated the price action will continue lower. Again, we'll bridge that gap when we get there. For now, I'm not super worried or concerned. Again, just waiting for confirmation. So I'd like to wait till the day is closed, so the candlestick daily is closed, to kind of see where we finish with the trend line here, but also kind of curious if we're going to see a bounce around the current price point or 23,000 even. Those are both strong support levels based on volume and a handful of other things. Okay, so again, mostly good stuff here from Bitcoin, even though it's a red day, right? Just keep in mind, we got to be cautious and careful. So always recommend lower position sizing in this market, especially if you're using leverage, and to just make sure you have kind of loose stop losses in place, because as you can see, these candle wicks are fairly obnoxious. Like, they are just ridiculous if you're day trading. So be very cautious in that regard. it's important to kind of protect your investment. So that's why I kind of prefer and gravitate more towards short-term swing trading, because you have options to be able to ride out these waves and these stupid little candle wicks and up and down. It's just ridiculous how terrible they can be. So just be mindful of that. All right, so that's basically where we're at here. I hope that you learned something here today. Of course, if you want to become a better trader, CryptoCache.tech is a site. Link in the description below. I do look forward to work with you, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you.